I have one goal today. If some of you walk away with a different attitude, that's all I ask. I sort of personally believe, and hopefully will prove to you, that punditry is the antithesis of innovation. What people believe is what most gets in the way of what we want to make happen. And so hopefully we can talk about it. I'll convey my attitude more than anything else, the way I approach things and the way I approach life. So let me start with this particular quote. Reasonable people only do reasonable things. Anything extraordinary or unreasonable comes from unreasonable people. I'll keep track of time. Also, and I actually don't know who first used this quote, but Paul Romer, economist at Stanford, first said it to me, so I ascribe it to him. But crisis is the only time people make progress. So crisis is a terrible thing to waste. But I want to start in a different place. I want to start with the reverence we hold for pundits. Experts, and I'm going to talk a lot about experts and their views of life. This was a Western Union memo. The telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered a means of communication. This was by the chairman of Digital Equipment Corporation. I agree, there's no reason to have one. There's reason to have a few hundred computers in one's home. This was not that long ago. I mean, they were Sun's largest competitor. Of course, when a great scientist like the president of the Royal Society says something's impossible, somebody's going to make it happen. So I want to talk about extrapolating the past. This was 1936. Just 6 years later, the Sputnik was launched. The V2 was launched. This is one of my favorites because I see this being used. Maybe I'll stand over here so I can see the screen. This is the kind of linear extrapolation people do. It's the basis on which people say, well, corn ethanol takes so many acres, so of course supplying our gasoline will take so many billion acres. This is exactly the kind of extrapolation that goes on. This is, in fact, the reality. Let me go from the incidental to the more serious forecasting we see. This is a quote I again love, and the key word here is precision. What we as a society and as individuals have learned is we extend way too much precision to anything that feels like a number, especially if it comes out of a computer. These are oil price forecasts, and I love these charts. That was the forecast 5 years out in 1985. The actual result was way off. By the way, this scale is a pretty small scale. That was the 10-year out forecast made in 1985. The actual result was way off. 1990, the 5-year forecast, the 5-year actual, the 10-year forecast, the 10-year actual. We don't yet have the 10-year out actual, but most certainly it's likely to be somewhere up there. The forecast was down here. Hopefully we'll know in 2010. But after you've done this for a while, and by the way, this is not unique. Gas price forecasts look the same. One should realize that it's futile to do this. There's another way to look at oil prices, and this is the Energy Information Administration. This was, and I apologize for the colors, the 2005 30-year forecast. And that little bar there is the range of prices the year before. So in 2004, this forecast was made about January. Prices went up a lot. In 2005, they were up there. So they made the same forecast. It does not feel like a single assumption in the model was changed, just the baseline was changed. Despite the fact that in 1 year there was more variation than had been forecast for 30 years. 2007, 2008, see persistent behavior. Now, this one's interesting because the price volatility was so large that they changed their assumption. I can almost guarantee the 2010 forecast will look like that too. This is not forecasting, it's guessing, and it's expert judgment. And I'll get to expert judgment in just a minute. To see how expert is this really. By the way, it's not unique to oil. This was a large telecommunications company's internal forecast in these dotted lines made in 1978 of what the total bandwidth consumed in the country would be. 1980, 1983, 87, so on. This was the actual. So every year, the world changed dramatically, and they repeated the old model. This is where all of what we believe and put into our economic models comes from. This is a picture for world oil supply projection. This is from the latest Foreign Policy magazine. This is 2006, the breakup, and I apologize again.